Well, the NFL got shaken up by the Miami Dolphins last week as the Dolphins made a pair of aggressive trades to move up move down and then up the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. It was a complicated formula that helped the San Francisco 49ers get themselves the number 3 pick, putting themselves in position to select. They admitted it's going to be a quarterback day. I mean, where's the mystery with that? The question is, which quarterback is it going to be? And then the Miami Dolphins took the number 12 pick they got from the San Francisco 49ers and traded it to the Eagles to get the number 6 pick, gave up one of the first rounders that they got from the 49ers. Most in the league loved this trade, but our own Dave Hyde was a major cynic of the trade, helped the Dolphins get themselves in position to select probably the same player that they would have taken at number 3. Dave, explain yourself to the people.
To me, it was one of simple historical value of the 3rd round pick. And forget the 2 trades and the complications and all that. This was simple. They traded the 3rd pick to the 6th pick and essentially got a 1st round pick in 2023. Now I realize they sent out a 4th round pick, they got a 5th round pick, they get a 3rd round pick next year. Okay, but essentially they're getting a 1st round pick in 2023. And a few years ago, Indianapolis was in the same position, 3rd. They traded to the same position, 6th, and they got the 32 second round picks that same year, not off in the distance, that same year, the second round pick overall, 34th, a 49th, and following year they got another 2nd rounder, the 34th overall. Again, it turned out to be the 2nd pick of the 2nd round. That was my bar of what to expect. Something in that neighborhood. They didn't get anything close to that. They got essentially a 1st round pick 2 years from now, which if you use, as I do, because I live now, I think sports is about today, not continually hope for in the distance. Okay, you discount a pick by 1 round for every year that's gone by. So that's 2 years from now. So that 1st round pick is really a 3rd round pick. Okay, so I just didn't see the value. I get everybody saying they can get the same player at 6th that they did at 3rd. Okay, I agree with you, but you're not getting value out of what that 3rd round pick could have been. And in my view, now I'm in the minority. I get that.
You are in the minority. Here's the problem that I think that we have in this divide of understanding about what the Dolphins did in this trade. And I agree with you. You got to lump the 2 trades in. They're a package deal. Ultimately, what they walk away with is a 3rd round pick in 2022 and a 1st round pick in 2023. Okay, these are future years, not present picks. Okay, so and let's look at it from the trade value chart when we're just using points and numbers, and that's how I really evaluate every trade. What do the points add up to? How much did you come out ahead? Now, when Miami traded with the 49ers, the 3rd round pick is worth 2,200 points. The trade that they got from the 49ers is the equivalent of 3,090 points. So you're walking away 850 points ahead in that trade. That's the equivalent, not what you got back. This is just what you're ahead. You're walking away ahead an extra 1st round pick in 2022. Now, let's look at the trade with the Eagles. Now, that trade to get to where they wanted to be, to get to where they were comfortable, and as you know, Chris Grier probably was on the phone talking to every single team in the top 10, figuring out what he needed to get if they were interested in 3. I mean, this trade's been for sale this pick's been for sale for quite a while, and he realized who wanted it, who didn't want it, and he did the best that he could to package the deal so that he can not only be in a position where he was comfortable, which is in the top 6, but also get back good value. I looked at the Carolina Panthers as the ideal trade scenario for that number 3 pick. You go from 3 to 8. Ultimately, you're in the same range for players. And in that trade, you would walk away with their 2nd and their 3rd rounder this year. Well, to me, a first in the future, clearly it's distant future, and a third rounder is much better than a second and a third. And I like the trade. The best reason that I like the trade is because let's say 4 quarterbacks go in the top 4 selections. And let's say Penei Sewell gets picked by the Cincinnati Bengals. That leaves you in position to pick the exact player that you were probably going to pick at number 3, and you're ahead of first rounder and a third rounder. It's win-win to me.
Well, again, to me, I agree. You're probably going to get the same player. I don't think that anybody disputes that, and I agree with trading down. But when you compared what Indianapolis did a few years ago to this, it's not even close. It's not even, the value's not even close to what they got. So, and I don't know, I didn't understand the hypothetical trade with Carolina. I mean, I assume like you did that Chris Grier tried to trade with all these teams and got their best offers, and this was the best deal. Yeah. I mean, look, Chris Grier has set it up so they have a lot of draft picks starting last year in the draft through the next few years, okay? And if he hits on these draft picks, they're in great shape. If he doesn't hit on these draft picks, they're sunk. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, the whole getting these draft picks is part of the battle, but you got to turn them into draft, and he knows that. I mean, they need some stars. They need some players, and started last year with Tua. He's got to develop this year into the quarterback they think he can be, and they're going to put talent around him. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah. Our first question comes from
Alex. Omar, our first question comes from Alex. What's the benefit of Miami trading pick number 3 now versus trading on draft day?
I think that goes into what your main gripe is. I think you feel as if there could be more currency the closer do we get to the draft. And I thought that it would be a better idea to move that pick. They moved it on the exact time that Zach Wilson was having his pro day. I think it's better that you make it happen if you want to move down before people start circulating what teams are doing, and they're gathering at pro days and they're talking and they're conversing and they're exchanging information. I'm pretty sure the legwork had been done for weeks. As they say, the gambler Grier, who's made more trades than everybody in the NFL, he stays on the phone. He stays working these trades. And I do believe that this is the best that they could possibly get. And it also puts them still in position to trade down. Let's say if Trey Lance is still there, or if Justin Fields is still there at 6 and some desperate team wants to come up and select them. I'm not committed to being at number 6. I think the player that you're going to get at number 6 is probably the same player you're going to get at 8 or 9, or same caliber player. So they can certainly continue to trade down. But I think it's better that you move them now if you know the market's going to be hot for a quarterback. You're trying to seize on that market now, as opposed to wait a month and maybe the market cools off.
Yeah, you could argue that either way. You could argue that now's the better trade value as you get closer to the draft. We've seen it work both ways. And that's just something. Chris Grier has more information on that than any of us. He knows what teams are offering. He knows a lot of times the mock drafts now are just starting to come into line with what the GMs have known for weeks and months. Okay, they're finally catching up to what is conventional thought, that Zach Wilson, he's going 2nd. And, maybe Mac Jones will be going 3rd. I mean, somebody's going 3rd. San Francisco didn't trade up that high to take a wide receiver, okay? They're getting a quarterback, and the question is which one?
Yeah.
Our next question comes from G. How many legit first-round talents are in this draft? How many of them are elite?
Yeah, that's an important question that you always got to ask because it sort of lends to the credibility or the sustenance or the value of what the draft class is. And I think this year is hard, number one, because You don't have the NFL Combine, so you don't have group medicals. You don't have universal 40 times, L drills, broad jumps. What you've got is this compilation of a ton of information, which is how they used to do it back in the day before it became commercialized. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel, but there's going to be, the information's a little bit murkier this year. But in terms of the legit first round talents, based on my numbers and how I added it up, I have 30 legit first round talents in this draft, which is more than last year. I thought there were probably about 26 legit first round talents. Now, in terms of the elite prospects, which are guys that, the Trevor Lawrences, the Penei Sewells, the Rashawn Slaters, the Kyle Pitts, the Najee Harrises, the Jamar Chases of the world, there are about 13 of those guys. And that's a pretty good number. As long as you're in about 13, pick 13, you're going to walk away with a really good quarterback. Probably can go a little bit probably to pick 15, because I'm not certain all of these quarterbacks that are going to be super selected super high if you're not reaching on one of these quarterbacks. And I think a lot of teams are going to be reaching on some of these quarterbacks. But the Najee Harrises of the world, the Kyle Pitts, the Jamar Chases, Penei Sewell, Slater, the Collins kid, the linebacker. I think that those are going to be really proven, polished NFL players when they hit the league. Zaven Collins, when they hit the league, I think they're going to hit the floor, hit the ground running.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. How many legit first rounds there are, or legit? All I know is this draft lines up perfectly with the Dolphins' needs. They need playmakers. There are a lot of playmakers out there. At the third, sixth, wherever they are going to be picking, there's going to be a chance to get a great receiver, okay? And in the second, and with the 18th pick, there's going to be a chance to get a great, I hate to say it, running back. In fact, with the second round, you could get a great running back, okay? If you want an offensive tackle, if that's your flavor of the day, you're going to have a chance for that, okay? And then you move into the second round, and there's that second layer of very good receivers, too, that they can get. And, it has everything really except a bona fide, surefire edge rusher, a pass rusher, okay? And hey, that's you. If you're the Dolphin fan, you couldn't really ask for a better draft to match what your needs are right now. Even center. I mean, there's 3-4 centers you can sit there according to scouts and plug in and play. So, I don't know how many legit first rounders are. I just know that this draft, more than many in recent years, matches up to just what the Dolphins need.
CT wants to know how much of Parcells lives in Grier, specifically the standard physical attributes per position, and should this give us a clue about who they will be thinking about in this draft?
I hope not. I hope not, because if we saw one thing, it's the game, the draft game, the game. Parcells was a genius in the 90s. By the time through the Dolphins, you just didn't see it. You didn't see him drafting well here. Okay, he didn't draft well with the Cowboys. I mean, that's just look. As he says, the record says who you are. Okay, so look, the game is different now. Okay, but sure, there are elements of Parcells that were genius. Okay, elements of his ability to read people, to motivate people, to understand what you're getting, that were smart. It wasn't just Parcells. One of the great things about Chris Grier, he has a good relationship with Nick Saban. So we're talking about all these Alabama players. He's going to get a straight shot, you would assume, from Nick Saban, and so we'll see. But everybody loves Parcells had great lines, but I just didn't see it when he was here, and I wanted to see it. You wanted to see that genius of building a program, and you can't be dismissive of the quarterback as he was.
Woo! Dismissive about the quarterback. I think he selected 3 quarterbacks during his run as the executive Miami Dolphins, except for he selected Ryan Tannehill. The problem is he didn't select the right ones. But the size
he didn't select an early one. He kept selecting. He wanted a value quarterback. He wanted one in the second round. Okay, okay. You could do that maybe in the 90s, or in the 80s, but not now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there, but I still think the size molds are important. The one thing that stands out to me is you draft exceptions. You'll have a team full of exceptions, and that's still important. You look at Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki's an exception for his position. He's a slot tight end, an H-back, whatever you want to call him, but he's not a traditional tight end. Well, he's an exception.
I don't need a traditional, as Bill Belichick said, Omar. Bill Belichick, his scouting report, look it up on the internet.
Yes,
said in 1991, I can live with a receiving tight end who can't block. I don't care. You got value in that. Belichick was a Parcells disciple. So, I mean, if we're talking discipleship here, I mean, Parcells would have been fine with the receiving tight end.
Belichick's also not good at drafting, with the exception of the tight ends that he selected. However, he did just sign and overpay 2 tight ends who can block. So, let's not take his words and let's make sure his words match up with his actions. But I don't have a problem with Parcells, and I don't have a problem with the Parcells era. When you look at the Parcells era, they were a physical team. They won the line of scrimmage. I still believe that you can win football that way. I still want this team to be built that way. Unfortunately, they're not there yet. Hopefully, they still believe in those molds. But I do know Chris Grier is the type of executive who he gives his head coach what he wants. So if his head coach wants a wide receiver masquerading as a tight end, that's what he's going to get. If his head coach wants a small pass rusher who's good at stunts and twits like Vince Beagle or Andrew Van Ginkel, that's what he's going to select. So I do believe that Chris Grier is pretty much like a chameleon when it comes to a talent evaluation, and he'll find what his coach wants, because he drafts differently for Adam Gase than he drafts for Brian Flores, and I think that's a credit to who he is as an executive.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation, and you're right. He talks about, and most GMs do, but he certainly does more than even most GMs, which is it's a collaborative effort. They all get together, and he's not going to foist a player the coach doesn't want on him. He'll make sure the coach wants the player. And you're right. I think that's a smart way to go.
One of the biggest things I like about Chris Grier is that he can consistently minimize his ego. There is no ego. I mean, I've covered a lot of ego in NFL, and as you know, Dave, there's a lot of ego in the NFL. Chris Grier is a man who has no ego, and that's a credit to him. Sometimes I do think he needs to take a firm stance and put his foot down, and he is the head man in charge. He is the numero uno in this organization, but he does not act like that.
Well, he has put his foot down. I mean, on certain draft picks, and I know I mentioned it before when there was Steve Ross even raised it on draft night. Should we trade down? He goes, no, we got our guy right here. It's Minkah Fitzpatrick. He was right. I mean, a 2-time All-Pro now, unfortunately in Pittsburgh, but the point being, if he sees something, he will put his foot down and say, this is what we're going to do. So, okay, when the Dolphins moved back into the top 8 selections, it became very obvious that was a range they felt comfortable with because they have a target or a tier of targets in mind. Most NFL experts believe that their tier is ideal for this draft's top pass catchers, whether it's Florida tight end Kyle Pitts, LSU's receiver Jamar Chase, or Alabama's Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. But what about the 2 offensive linemen, Omar? I'm just setting you up here. This is like this is your wheelhouse. Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater or the pass rushers. What makes the most sense for the Dolphins at number 6?
Well, it does make sense that the number 6 selection is going to be a pass catcher, whether it be the tight end Kyle Pitts, whether it's the Jamar Chase who Really had an impressive pro day. He's a little bit smaller than I thought he would be. I expected him to be in the 6'1" realm, 6'2" realm, because he plays so big, but he's just 6 foot, but athletic movement skills. Chris Grier was there at that pro day today, while Brian Flores was at Kyle Pitts' pro day. And I really think that it comes down to those two players at 6. If both are there, it'll be an interesting debate about who they select. If one is there, I think it's an easy selection. It's either going to be Jamar Chase or it's going to be Kyle Pitts. To me, that's where this draft is, and I think the Dolphins traded up and gave up a king's ransom because they did lose bad on that trade with the Eagles. They gave up basically an extra equivalent of the 471 points, which is basically the equivalent of the 43rd pick. That's the extra that they gave up to the Philadelphia Eagles to make that move up from 12 to 6. While I would love to tell you that they should select one of these elite offensive linemen, I think it's an irresponsible thing to say. So I'm not going to say it, Dave. I know you're proud of me, but I will want my running back at 18. But I think it makes more sense to select a guy who can create the mismatches that you're missing. Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase, they're on the field. They draw extra attentions. They keep offensive coordinators up at night. Even Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle. One of those 4 players, and right now, I know we've talked about this for a couple of weeks, and I know I mocked Jamar Chase to the Miami Dolphins at 6, but I think Kyle Pitts might be the answer because he can move from tight end to slot receiver to outside boundary. You don't know who to put on the field for him. And that's something that they don't have. Mike Gesicki doesn't do that for you. You can put Kyle Pitts on the line. You can put him at the slot. You can put him on the boundary. Mike Gesicki can only go into the slot. He can't really play on the line, and he can't really play on the boundary. He's just a slow wide receiver then. So I think it benefits them to select Kyle Pitts at 6. I've come a long way. The Gator fans have beaten me down. They've worn me down. And I'm watching Kyle Pitts' pro day today lets me realize that he is the number 2 prospect in this draft. He is the number 2 talent. Now, Jamar Chase is not far. He's number 3. I was always back and forth which one is better, but Kyle Pitts is the better talent.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Look, I'm glad, Omar, I feel so warm inside that you didn't pick an offensive lineman because I thought this is so tempting for you, isn't it?
It is.
It gets to my thought, you need a good offensive line. You don't need the best offensive line in the league. You need great playmakers to win in the league, right? Look at Kansas City. Everybody points out, oh, they didn't have tackles in the Super Bowl. Okay, they were missing both starting offensive tackles. Okay, that's a whole different discussion than saying.
They cut both in the offseason. They cut both in the offseason.
They cut both in the offseason. But they have great playmakers to go with Patrick Mahomes. And this offseason is all about, as I've said, door number 1, helping Tua out. If you go through door number 1 and Tua is your guy, it should be all about Tua helping him out, getting him some playmakers. And, whether you go with Chase or Pitts is a matchup nightmare for offensive coordinators, okay? Because as you can move them all over the field, and who's gonna go with them all over the field? That's going to be the first question for a defense. So, but
the Dolphins actually have that piece that can defend Kyle Pitts and Eric Rowe. Now he's not going to be able to do it all on his own. I mean, Eric Rowe, come on, he defended all with the exception of Darren Waller.
Yeah, absolutely.
He pretty much, and other teams will have those tight end stoppers. But you're right. A guy who's as big as Eric Rowe, who moves with a 4.4 speed and lateral mobility and quickness, those are hard to find in this draft, in any draft, and hard to keep on your team. So not
Okay, our next question is comes from Trojan. Do you think Jalen Waddle would be the best fit for Tua and our offense? I guess the question becomes, best fit of the secondary, because I think both Omar and I agree that Pitts or Jamar Chase
without a doubt, it creates those matchup problems that you want to have.
Yeah, I Pitts or Chase would be the first tier of hope if you're the Dolphins. Then it's Waddle or Smith, and that comes down to look, Waddle moves in different places better over the field, but look, Smith produced so much that it's gonna come down to do you like raspberry or do you like butterscotch ice cream? It's one of those. What fits better to you, and what are the Dolphins trying to do? And with the rest of, how's he fit into their receiving group? Because either of those have the potential to be great. But I'm not worried about Smith's size like other people. He played every game in the SEC, every game in college, okay? And he got hurt. He broke his, well, it was a thumb or finger in the last game. But it isn't like he had problems staying on the field at Alabama in the SEC.
Definitely the SEC, the fact that he played every game, the fact that he scored like 48 touchdowns, very impressive. The one thing that I think Jalen Waddle does is he gives you the return threat edge. He gives you a better deep threat edge. I look at Devonta Smith as a Marvin Harrison type, a route runner, an Isaac Bruce type of route runner. He gives you the run after catch yards. He also gives you crisp route running. But then it's harder to find those guys who can take the top off of defense like Jalen Waddle. So I think that Jalen Waddle was probably the better fit for Miami. However, I'm comfortable with either player. I think Devonta Smith is going to be a very good pro.
Okay, I alluded to this a little early. Andrew wants to know, how big an issue is Devonta Smith's weight at the NFL level, Omar?
You cannot get a legit weight on him. And he's telling people that he was 170 pounds at Alabama and at his pro day. That's not necessarily what the NFL teams are reporting. And then we know that you can, on your pro day, you can do things like drinking 4 gallons of water to add an extra couple of pounds, which might explain why he didn't really run routes. The one thing that bothers me about the Alabama prospects, and all of them, which makes me a little bit uncomfortable, is one, Alabama had 2 pro days. Why do you need 2 pro days? I don't know, but you're Alabama, so you can get away with it. And then 2, we don't have a 40 time. We don't have a L drill time. We don't have broads. We don't have any measurements on the Alabama playmakers, whereas we've got measurements on Jamar Chase. We've got measurements on Kyle Pitts. What's up with Alabama? We know, yes, Jalen Waddle was running races with Ruggs, and it was neck and neck. We saw it. We saw it on video. Okay, it was good. It was impressive. But where is he with this injury now? And it kind of gives me the Ted Ginn draft day feel, where you don't really know where he is from a timing, measurements standpoint. How much does Devonta Smith bench press 225 pounds? Like, we want to make a big issue about his weight. Where's the strength? We don't know these things. Like, what's Alabama got to hide, Dave?
I'd say you and I don't know these things, but I would bet the pro scouts, the GMs, they know these things. Okay, I would bet that a lot of times pro day or the combine doesn't give new information to the scouts and GMs. It confirms what they know. Right. Okay, and I would bet over the course of the past few years of accumulating information, they know everything they need to know about this stuff. Okay, and all the pro day would have done is confirm in their mind, okay, yes, that's right. My concern about the Alabama players, and I agree with you, I'm kind of mystified by the 2 pro day thing. And that gets to my number 1 concern. Do they have just so many prospects they need 2 pro days? And I have a hard time, and I've talked to a couple scouts about this, when you are surrounded by that much good talent, you have to be very careful of, because football is such a complementary game of thinking they're all great players. All of them are going to succeed in the NFL. All these receivers, and maybe from last year, They're going to have like 5 number 1 draft picks.
Tua was playing with 4 first-round picks
Yes.
when he was quarterback of the Alabama Crimson Tide. He had 4 first-round picks, and he had an offensive line that featured 4 probably potentially first or second-round offensive linemen. Like, hold on here. He's got 2 backs in the backfield that are first-round selections. Like, what's going on here? And I get it. Alabama is the new Miami. They are that program, but not every talent that comes out of that program is star-studded and destined for greatness. And that's where I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I'm also a little bit uncomfortable with Alabama prospects. They're about as polished and as clean as you're going to get. They're not going to get better in the pros. Like the same player we saw leave Alabama, Minkah Fitzpatrick, is the same player he is with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Unfortunately, the Dolphins couldn't get the Pro Bowler out of him, but he still was a Pro Bowl talent. And so I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that from that standpoint. Like, they're kind of maxed out.
Let's get you on the record about Mac Jones, Omar. Where are you at with him? He's one of those mystery specials who's ridden up. Now he's talked about being for the 3rd pick to San Francisco.
I think he's got one hell of an agent. When that trade was made, and all of a sudden you inject Mac Jones into the conversation, people didn't even have him mocked in the 1st round, and now all of a sudden people are talking about him as a top 5 pick. I think you're reaching a little. I don't think he's the type of athlete that teams want at their quarterback today. And I just don't see it. Now, will he be selected in the 1st round? Absolutely. But Christian Ponder was selected in the 1st round. So, Jake Locker was selected in the 1st round. Teams, as we know and have seen, and history has shown for the last 2 decades, teams miss on quarterbacks often. I like Mac Jones. I like his accuracy. I think in time he's going to be a very good quarterback. But would I select him in the first half of the 1st round? Absolutely not.
It's interesting. A guy like Chris Sims, who and a former NFL quarterback who has become a quarterback analyst, a football analyst, but especially quarterbacks. Last year, he went loudly and said Justin Herbert is better than Tua. Now he's loudly saying Mac Jones is right behind. He's saying that Zach Wilson is, I believe he's saying, and still saying what he said it earlier. I don't think he's backed off it, that he'd be his number 1 prospect, and that Mac Jones is the number 3 prospect. So I agree with you. Traditionally, it's throwing darts at a board for team. I really don't think, aside from a few special talent evaluators, anybody has any idea what they're doing with quarterbacks other than throwing a dart at the board and hoping they got the right one.
And let me say that. Let me clarify something. Could he be the 3rd quarterback, or should he be the 3rd quarterback? I'm not going to argue against it because I'm not a Justin Fields fan. And Trey Lance, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen enough. So I don't know. Mac Jones, we've seen for 2 seasons. We've seen him throw some NFL talent. His accuracy is magnificent. He gives you the same kind of accuracy throws that Tua gave you in that RPO offense. But understand, you got to take a little something off of that RPO offense because that's paint by numbers. The question is, can he read a defense? Is he going to have the same issues that Tua has in terms of being able to read a defense? Because when you run that RPO offense, it's this or that, here or there. And it's paint by numbers. And in the NFL, you got to read defenses, especially on 3rd down. That RPO crap ain't working on 3rd down. So you got to be able to read, diagnose, dissect. And I'm not sure he's ready to do that. But would I say he's the 3rd best quarterback in this draft? Maybe, because I'm not a huge Justin Fields fan. Justin Fields would not be my quarterback. I'm just not a scrambling quarterback kind of guy. And Trey Lance, I don't know. I don't know. He didn't even play last year. Like, I don't know.
I don't remember any talk about paint by numbers things with Tua last year when he was coming out in the analysis, Omar. I don't remember any diminishing of him because of the RPO.
I'm learning the RPO slowly, Dave. I'm understanding the elements of it. And now that I understand the important elements of it, I'm seeing where it's kind of smoke and mirrors, and depending on what the defense does. And let's say you have a defense that says, okay, we're not going to stop your run like what happened to Miami Dolphins. Like, you go ahead and run. You do whatever you want to do. We're going to beat you with the throwing. We're going to beat you when you're throwing the football. You got to make some tough decisions. And I'm not saying Tua will not become a better processor, but at Alabama, how open were their receivers? Because you couldn't cover everybody. So somebody was wide open. That doesn't happen in the NFL.
Yeah, that's the good, the blessing and the curse of Alabama players. They're so good, but they're surrounded by so good too. Okay, Rod Bailey has our next one. If Jamar Chase is there at number 6, you take him because Will Fuller's on a 1-year deal and will cost the Dolphins big money to sign long term.
I like Jamar Chase. You've been hot on Jamar Chase more than I have been. I had this impression and thought that he was kind of a bigger power receiver, like a split end, like Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. And truth be told, he's not that. He moves very well, fluidly, and it was just his role. He can high point the ball, but he's got his shuttle time was probably the most impressive shuttle time of this year in terms of, and shuttle is a real good indicator of change of direction. So that means he can be your run after catch guy. He can be your slot wide receiver. And so I'm all on board with taking him if he's there at 6. I wouldn't select him over Kyle Pitts, but because I wouldn't select him over Kyle Pitts. Let me qualify that, because I think you can get a good receiver later on in the draft. You cannot get Kyle Pitts later on in the draft. The UM tight end, Brevin Jordan, is kind of in that mold of mismatched weapons, but he can't block. So I'm definitely going with Kyle Pitts if he's there at 6. But Jamar Chase is no slouch, and he is not a split end. I would kind of put him in the category of a flanker. He runs fast enough. He's got good movement skills. I sort of watched this film and misunderstood what his game was. I thought he was way bigger than he measured in at, and that's a compliment to him.
Yeah, I think, look, whoever they end up, if they got Pitts or Chase, it's a win for the Dolphins. I mean, that's either of those are the type of playmakers that add a new element to what you can do offensively.
Yeah, and let's address the Will Fuller thing. He signed a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal. Now, if he proves it, then he's probably going to enter the $14 million a year realm. You're probably going to have to franchise tag him. If he doesn't prove it, then he's kind of like your number 3 receiver on your team. You could add him. You need a number 1. And right now, Devontae Parker's a number 2. Preston Williams is a mystery. And Will Fuller's kind of a number 2. You need a number 1, and that can be Jamar Chase.
Yeah, Will Fuller was a great signing. I thought, first of all, the 1-year deal and the element of speed that he brings that you need. So matching him to their needs and alleviating some of the desperation at receiver. Also, I mean, that was a real smart signing.
Plenty of fans are obsessed about the receiver and the tailback, not just fans, the media too, that the Miami Dolphins need to draft because, the ball watchers rule the draft, Dave. But the Dolphins team has been carried by its defense, not just last season, pretty much for an entire decade. Did that unit take a step forward or backwards during free agency? Let's analyze that. Bernardrick McKinney was added to the linebacking core. He'll probably sort of replace Elandon Roberts, who was re-signed, paired with who's the linebacker the Dolphins have? Ohio State kid, leading tackler, Dave. Jerome Baker. McKinney will probably be paired with Jerome Baker as the inside guys. But the Dolphins also lost Kyle Van Noy and Shaq Lawson. They also lost Avin Godchow, who was replaced by Adam Butler, the player that he coincidentally was signed to replace in New England. So Miami got the leftover of the Patriot players. Miami signed a veteran quarterback in Justin Coleman and re-signed Vince Beagle and Elandon Roberts. Will this Dolphins defense, Dave, be better or worse than last year, and why?
Oh, God. That's such a hard question to ask right now because there's so many moving parts. Let's start here. Did they improve their run defense? Okay,
Yes.
that depends on why. Bernard
McKinney's,
McKinney. I mean,
yes. Upgrade as the inside linebacker.
over London Roberts.
Oh yeah, and Landon Roberts is still here, so he could play on third down and McKinney go to the. I was not a big Kyle Van Noy fan, as you know. Kyle Van Noy couldn't stop the edge. Shaq Lawson didn't necessarily fit into this defense. And I think that, yes, they improved from a run game standpoint, but I think that they sort of took a dip from a pass game standpoint. Also, Rayshawn Davis in his second year, we should expect a major jump from him.
I agree. That's to me, when you say, are they going to be better, where are those guys? Not just Rayshawn Davis, but the Andrew Van Ginkles, the Vince Beagles. Where are they? You're asking me to project where they're going to be in a year. And look, this whole rebuild, as we know, is developmental. Okay, these young players from year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3 are going to be better. There's no reason to think they won't be better. Now, do they have a premier pass rusher? No. Do you need one? That's the question really with what Brian Flores brought from New England. New England didn't think you needed a premier pass rusher.
That's true.
Okay, and so they're built from the secondary. They invest in the secondary, New England, and that's exactly how Brian Flores is doing it here. Okay, so philosophically, they're not going to have great pass rushers. And can you get by with that? That's the question. Can Vince Beagle and Andrew Van Ginkle provide that pass rush with Emmanuel Ogbah on the other side? I mean, that's And so as far as Kyle Van Noy, he delivered exactly what was expected of him, what you could expect of him. No more, no less. His what he showed in New England, look at the stats, are almost a mirror of what he did in New England. But he wasn't going to be paid $15 million a year for that, is ultimately what he. And
12, but I get your point. Yes, he wasn't worth the money. You can get a Vince Beagle complimentary player for 1/3 the same price, same type of player. He wasn't what you paid for. The Drunken Finn has our next question. Can you share your thoughts on Miami's current safety room? With a hard-hitting safety like FSU's, this name is Hassan Durin. I can't even say it. Sorry for butchering your name. Would he help Miami's defense take the next step? Let me start this question by explaining the Dolphins secondary. The Dolphins do not need nor want a playmaking free safety, which is probably why you saw Minka Patrick go bye-bye. What they want is, and this is going to bother Dave, what they want is a guy who is back there directing traffic, who does not let anybody behind him. And that's Bobby McCain. They like Bobby McCain. They're comfortable with Bobby McCain. He is their starting free safety. He is the captain of their defense. You might not like it, but that's what you're going to get because Brian Flores likes it. And then Eric Rowe, he covers the tight ends. He's a strong safety. He covers the tight ends. It's a very unique position, but he fills the void. Now, could they use a better in-the-box safety to replace Brandon Jones? Probably. But it really comes down to, where they feel the value is. I think this team probably feels like they can go and sign an undrafted guy and develop a guy and address that strong safety in the box Rashad Jones type player. I don't think they feel like they need it. They've got linebackers. They want linebackers with that movement skill, not safeties. So I think they would value more a linebacker like Jerome Baker as opposed to a safety like Rashad Jones, because Jerome Baker and Rashad Jones are basically playing the same role in this defense. One fits, one doesn't.
I agree. I keep hearing questions about getting a safety this offseason, and I'm thinking that is so far down their positional needs. I'm fine. Look, Brandon Jones he had a fine rookie year, and he should be better in his second year. I mean, so you put him, McCain, Rowe, and sure, you're going to pick somebody up or someone's going to develop that you have on your your 90-man roster coming into camp, but it's not a position of great need. Now, if you to address Minkah Fitzpatrick, a little peeve of mine. If you had him, if you had a talent like him back there, you wouldn't necessarily need all these great cornerbacks, okay? And because he would alleviate some of the concerns back there, Omar.
Minkah didn't want to do the job you wanted him to do, Dave.
Okay, Daniel wants to know, is Justin Coleman signing purely a depth move or a possible lack of faith in Noah Igbenogany or Nick Needham, or the desire to move one of the two big contracts?
I think the Dolphins will eventually move one of the two big contracts, but not now, not this offseason, not in this draft. Hey, let's hope they do keep both of them. They turn out to be studs. But I think they're comfortable with Noah and what he saw in the first season. Really, if we take the Seattle game out of the equation and he just kept peeking into the backfield with Russell Wilson, which is the dumbest thing you could ever do. His teammates to this day still make fun of him for thinking you could peek into the backfield against Russell Wilson. You can't. You're not. That's like peeking into the backfield against Aaron Rodgers. You're going to get roasted. Lesson learned. I think he's a good talent, but he's a boundary guy. And they have a third boundary guy, which is very important. One of those top two go down. You got to have that third guy. He plays an important role. Justin Coleman was about improving the nickel spot. And I'm a Nick Needham fan. I like superstar. I believe Nick Needham is going to be a good NFL player. Now, the Buffalo game, take a little step back. Nick Needham was exposed from a speed standpoint. They put some quick slot receivers on him, and he got roasted. And you'd have to think other teams will try to build on that, which is why you have to improve the nickel spot. Props to Nick Needham for what he's done as an undrafted rookie. He's been a 2-year starter. He's proven he's an NFL player. The question is, and I thought he was a top 10 nickel cornerback until that Buffalo game. Now Nick Needham's got to go back into the lab, improve on that speed, and prove and shut everybody else up again, like he's done for the last 2 years, and say, okay, speed is my issue. I've addressed my speed. Now what? And I believe in Nick Needham, but Justin Coleman is added here to play that nickel position.
Yeah, and look, we talked about Parcells before. He has great lines, tremendous lines. One of his great lines, you never have enough cornerbacks or enough tackles. Okay, so you continually have to replenish the cornerback position in an offseason, and you get a good contract and a veteran cornerback who can, as Omar said, he's comfortable in the slot. You're helping yourself. So I think that's really what that move was about, more than now. If they take a cornerback, as some people projected in the first pick, I'm like, whoa, that would be a game changer. That would send all sorts of. I don't see it, and whenever I hear people, well, they could take a cornerback, I'm like, where's that come from? So no, this is about playmaking this offseason. Okay, Coach Rich has our final question. Have the Dolphins got more or less physical so far this offseason?
My answer would be more. Benardrick McKinney is a very physical player. To me, when he was coming out, and I've watched him in Houston, he triggers a little slow, but he brings the physicality to position. Vince Beagle is a physical player, but, he's a jack of all trades guy. He's not going to set your edge. Miami needs somebody to set the edge. It'll be interesting. Adam Butler's addition allows you to do some different things on the defensive front. Maybe you play a 3-tackle front line. They did that at times last year, and then Emmanuel Ogbah out there. So that could definitely help you against the run. And then Sentinel Carter, the fullback, H-back, tight end added. I think that helps you become more physical. And obviously the Rayshawn Davis is good. The jump you're going to get from second-year players and third-year players in this scheme, even the Magbas of the world who have a better understanding of this scheme now in their second year in it, I think you're going to see a more physical team. The question is, can they stop the run? And really, to me, it comes down to the play of the inside linebackers, and I think McKinney is good enough. He's an upgrade.
Yeah, and move that to the offensive line. Really, they brought everybody back except, and you expected that, except at center. And we'll have to see exactly what's going to happen at center after the draft. Then we'll have a better read on, okay, here's their plan at center. But
Yeah.
they should have these rookies moving into the second year, a couple of them were, they're physical players, and you want to see that in their second year. I mean, so.
I want to see them in the offseason program. I think they've got a lot of upside. They got a lot of potential. It wasn't put on the field, but even the Michael Dieters and the Jesse Davis, second year, and new scheme. My God, my hope is that Eric Studesville changes the way that they play in the run game. He comes from a zone blocking background. I would love to see them become a zone blocking team. And
let's change the scheme for the fourth time in 4 years, right? Let's just keep changing it.
If you don't have a good offensive line, why not? And they didn't have one. I hear where you're coming from, but let's not act like power was working. You drafted all these power pigs, and they weren't moving anybody. So why not start cutting?
Well, you're preaching patience for Tua. How about patience for 3 rookie offensive linemen? I mean,
just upgrade the center spot, and we're good.
Okay, I'm with you there. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching X's and Omar's. We will be back next week talking more draft, talking more free agency. Maybe the Dolphins trade back from 6 now, Dave.
Omar.
I still think there's room to trade back. I still think they're in the wheelhouse where they can still trade back again and get a quarterback and shut Dave Hyde up. Yeah, allow another team to get.
They need great players. Okay, we're in agreement. They need great players. However they want to get them, that's on the personal. But they need great players. They have one great player.
Yeah, I feel more comfortable with them having more picks in the later rounds than I do with them having the 6th pick. I think, 6 picks is important. It's going to be a good player. But I would rather hedge my bets and get another extra 2nd or 3rd round pick, get another late round pick. I don't think they have enough late round picks. That's just my opinion. This draft, I just want to keep throwing darts on the dartboard and seeing what sticks. And they don't have enough late round selections for me. But they can always move down. Gambling Grier's always willing to trade. Every team knows that. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Well, X's and Omar can be found on Sentinel site. We post the show on Wednesday in different segments, and you can also find it streaming on anywhere you find your podcast formats. Dave, see you next week, Wednesday.
See you next week, Omar.